Rain drummed on the roof of the old 2015 Honda Accord as Emily Chen drove into Toledo's old West End neighborhood. Her GPS indicated that she was less than a mile from her destination, but every turn felt like a step into the unknown. 3 cardboard boxes and 2 suitcases in the back seat were all that remained of her former life in Cleveland. Emily stopped at a traffic light and looked at herself in the rearview mirror. She was 32 years old, but she felt much older. Dark circles under her eyes betrayed months of stress and sleepless nights. The divorce from David had taken not only her home and half her savings, but also her confidence in the future. "You can do this, Em," she whispered to herself, using a childhood nickname she hadn't heard in years. "This is temporary, just until you get back on your feet." The house at 847 Robbins Avenue looked exactly as Sarah had described it on the phone. A 2-story brick Victorian with white shutters and a small porch. The neighborhood was decent, although some of the houses had clearly seen better days. Emily parked in the driveway next to a silver Ford pickup truck that presumably belonged to Sarah's husband. Before she could get out of the car, the front door swung open, and a woman with shoulder-length brown hair ran out onto the porch. "Emily!" Sarah Thompson shouted, ignoring the rain. "My God, you're here!" They hugged in the drizzling rain, and for a moment Emily felt like she was 17 again. Sarah had hardly changed since they last saw each other at their high school graduation more than 10 years ago. The same bright green eyes, the same infectious smile. Only the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes betrayed the passing years. Come on in, you'll get soaked," Sarah said, pulling Emily toward the house. "Leave your things for now. Mike will help you later." Inside, the house was cozy and warm. Sarah was clearly proud of her home. There were family photos, homemade crafts, and soft blankets everywhere. The smell of cinnamon and vanilla filled the air. "Mike's at work, but he'll be back soon," Sarah said, leading Emily to the kitchen. "I made your favorite, lasagna. Remember how we made it in senior year for the school fair?" Emily smiled. "Of course I remember. We almost burned the kitchen down." "And you had to explain to your parents why the stove was covered in cheese," Sarah laughed, pouring coffee. "Sit down. Tell me everything. Or rather, tell me what you're ready to tell me." Emily sat down at the kitchen table and wrapped her hands around the warm mug. Where to start? With how David had cheated on her with a colleague? With how the lawyer had explained that the house she thought was theirs was only in her husband's name? Or with how she had spent the last 3 months living in a cheap motel because her pride wouldn't let her ask for help? "The divorce was finalized last month," she began quietly. "David got the house. I got the debt and a promise to pay alimony, which he'll probably never pay." Sarah reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I'm so sorry. I know how much you loved him." "Turns out I loved the wrong man," Emily tried to smile, but it came out crooked. "He'd been seeing Michelle from accounting for 2 years. The whole office knew except me." "What a jerk," Sarah said with unexpected anger. "How could he? After 7 years of marriage?" Emily shrugged. "I guess I should have paid attention to the signs. Late nights at work, secret phone calls, the way he stopped. Anyway, it doesn't matter. What's done is done." At that moment, the front door slammed open, and a man with short brown hair and a Toledo Auto Service logo on his overalls walked into the house. He was taller than Sarah, with broad shoulders and calloused hands. "Mike, come here," Sarah called. "Meet Emily." Mike Thompson entered the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He had a kind face with soft brown eyes and a faint stubble. "So you're the Emily Sarah won't stop talking about," he said with a warm smile, extending his hand. "Mike Thompson, welcome to our home." "Thank you for taking me in," Emily replied, shaking his hand. "It means a lot to me." "Don't mention it," Mike waved his hand. "Sarah told me what you've been through. Men can be real bastards. Sorry for saying that." "Mike," Sarah said reproachfully, but there was love in her voice. "What? It's true." He walked over to his wife and kissed her on the top of her head. "I'm going to get changed. Then I'll help carry your things in. Emily, I hope you're hungry. Sarah's been cooking all afternoon." When Mike went upstairs, Sarah poured herself some coffee and sat down opposite Emily. "He's nice," Emily said sincerely. "Yes, I'm lucky," Sarah agreed. but there was a strange note in her voice. We met 4 years ago on a blind date. We got married a year later. Sometimes it feels like it was in another life. What about children? Sarah's face darkened for a moment. We tried. We went to doctors, we tried treatments. It's not working. She quickly changed the subject. What about you? Did you and David ever plan to have children? We did, but he always found reasons to put it off. His career, money, not the right time. Now I realize he just didn't want children with me. Sarah squeezed her hand again. It's his loss, Em. You would have been a wonderful mother. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the house, the creaking of floorboards upstairs, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant noise of cars on the street. Tell me about your job, Emily asked, wanting to change the subject. Sarah Chen, school administrator. That sounds important. Sarah Thompson, she corrected with a smile. And it's not as glamorous as it sounds. I mostly deal with truancy, talk to parents, and do paperwork. But the kids like it, and I get summer vacation. That's more than I have right now, Emily sighed. I'm going to apply at Toledo Hospital tomorrow. I hope they'll take a nurse with experience in the intensive care unit. They'll be happy to have you, Sarah assured her. You were always the smartest one in our class. Remember how you helped me with biology? And you helped me with history, Emily reminded her. We were a good team. Yes, we were, Sarah said softly. And we will be again. You know, I'm so glad you're here. Sometimes I get lonely. Mike works a lot, and I don't have many close friends. Emily looked at her old friend. In school, Sarah had been the center of attention, popular, outgoing, the one everyone gravitated toward. It was strange to hear her say she was lonely. What happened to the rest of our group? Emily asked. Jessica moved to California after college. Amy got married and moved to Detroit with her husband. Becky? Sarah paused. Becky died in a car accident 3 years ago. Oh my God! Emily gasped. Why didn't you tell me? I don't know. We lost touch, and it was hard for all of us. She was drunk driving. Sarah turned away from the window. After school, we all went our separate ways. Life took us in different directions. Emily felt a pang of guilt. After graduation, she had been so focused on college, then work, then David, that she had barely kept in touch with her high school friends. Just the occasional birthday message on social media. I'm sorry I wasn't there, she said quietly. You're here now, Sarah replied, turning to her with a bright smile. That's all that matters. Mike came downstairs in jeans and a t-shirt. Ladies, let's get your stuff inside before the rain gets any heavier. The three of them carried Emily's boxes and suitcases out of the car. Mike carried the heaviest items, joking that Emily had obviously packed bricks in the boxes. They're medical textbooks, Emily laughed. I couldn't throw them away. Of course not, Sarah said proudly. My friend is an intellectual. The guest room was on the second floor, next to Sarah and Mike's bedroom. It was small but cozy, with a queen-size bed, a dresser, and a desk by the window. I'm sorry it's not bigger, Sarah said, but it has everything you need. It's perfect, Emily assured her. Seriously, Sarah, I don't know how to thank you. Just get well, Sarah said softly, and know that you can stay here as long as you need to. When they went downstairs, Mike was already setting the table. The lasagna is almost ready, he announced. And I opened the wine. I think a day like this calls for a celebration. Over dinner, they talked about old times, laughed at school stories, and carefully avoided painful topics. Mike proved to be a good storyteller, entertaining them with tales about his odd customers at the auto repair shop. Last week, a woman came in and said her car was making a strange noise, he said. I spent half an hour looking for the problem until I realized she'd forgotten to turn off the radio, and that's where the noise was coming from. Emily laughed for the first time in weeks. It felt good to sit at the family table, to feel like she was part of something normal and stable. After dinner, Mike went to watch the game, and the women stayed in the kitchen, finishing their wine. He's really nice, Emily said again. Yes, Sarah agreed, but there was that strange note in her voice again. Sometimes too nice, you know what I mean? Emily wasn't sure she did, but she nodded. He never gets angry, never raises his voice, Sometimes I wish he would show some emotion." "Better that than the opposite," Emily said, thinking about the last few months with David. "Of course," Sarah agreed quickly. "I'm not complaining. It's just that sometimes I wonder what he really thinks. About us, about life, about the future." Emily studied her friend's face. There was something else Sarah wasn't saying, but she didn't press the issue. Everyone has secrets in marriage. Late that night, lying in an unfamiliar bed in an unfamiliar room, Emily listened to the sounds of a strange house. Floorboards creaked somewhere, muffled voices came from the next room, then silence. She glanced at her phone. No messages from David. Not that she was expecting any, but the habit of checking remained. Instead, there was a message from her mother asking how she was doing, and a notification about a new job at the hospital on the job search website. Emily closed her eyes and tried to convince herself that everything would be fine, that this was really a new beginning, not just a delay of the inevitable collapse, that Sarah and Mike were genuinely happy for her, not just being polite. But when she finally fell asleep, she dreamed of the house in Cleveland that was no longer hers, and David with a woman whose face she couldn't make out. The first week at the Thompsons' house went surprisingly smoothly. Emily got a job at Toledo Hospital. Her experience in the intensive care unit proved to be very valuable. The salary wasn't as high as in Cleveland, but it was enough to start saving for her own place. "How was your first shift?" Sarah asked when Emily came home on Tuesday evening. "Tough, but good," Emily replied, taking off her work shoes. "My coworkers are friendly, and the patients are, well, patients. One man said I looked like his late wife and asked me to hold his hand all day." "That's sweet," said Sarah, stirring something on the stove. "Are you having dinner? Mike's running late. Their elevator broke and he's staying to help fix it." Emily noticed Sarah's voice become more tense when she mentioned her husband. "Of course I'll have dinner. What are you making?" "Your favorite chicken curry. Remember the recipe we got from the chef at that Thai place?" Emily smiled. "You remember all my preferences better than I do." "I've always been good at remembering things about the people I love," Sarah said softly. Over dinner, Sarah asked about work, colleagues, and plans for the future. Her attention was all-consuming, almost intense. Emily told her about Dr. Martinez, who was in charge of her department, and about Nurse Debbie, who had shown her the ins and outs of the hospital. "What about the men?" Sarah asked with a playful smile. "Handsome doctors? Lonely interns?" Emily laughed. "Sarah, I just got divorced last week. Men are the last thing on my mind right now." Of course," Sarah agreed quickly. "I just want you to be happy. I want someone to treat you well. Right now, I need to learn to treat myself well," Emily replied philosophically. Just then, Mike returned, tired and dirty. "Hi, ladies," he greeted them, kissing Sarah on the cheek. "Sorry I'm late. That damn elevator decided to break down at the worst possible moment." "It's okay," Sarah said, but Emily noticed how she tensed at his touch. "I left your dinner in the oven." "You're an angel," Mike said gratefully. "Let me take a shower first." When he went upstairs, Sarah began clearing the table with sharp, irritated movements. "Are you okay?" Emily asked. "Sure. Why do you ask?" "You seem upset." Sarah stopped, holding the plates in her hands. "No, everything's fine. You know how it is. He says he's going to be late at work, and I start thinking all kinds of things." "What kind of things?" "Nonsense. Paranoia." Sarah tried to smile. "David's divorce reminded me that men can be unpredictable." Emily nodded understandingly. "After what happened to me, I've become more suspicious too, but Mike doesn't seem like that type." "No," Sarah agreed quietly. "He doesn't seem like that." The next day, Emily worked the evening shift. She returned home around midnight to find the house dark except for the light in the living room. Mike was sitting on the couch in front of the TV with a bottle of beer. "Hi," she said quietly. "Did I wake you?" "No, I wasn't asleep. I'm watching a game replay." He looked at her. "How was your shift?" "Tough. 3 people in a car accident." Emily sat down in the chair across from him. "Where's Sarah?" "She went to bed early. Said she had a headache." Mike turned off the TV. "Want a beer?" "Why not?" He brought her a cold bottle, and they sat in comfortable silence, watching the silent game on the screen. Can I ask you something? Mike said finally. Sure. Sarah seems kind of strange lately, more tense. Have you noticed anything? Emily chose her words carefully. She mentioned that she sometimes worries when you're late coming home from work. Mike sighed. Yes, I know. It started a few months ago. She's become more possessive. She calls me at work to check where I am. Once she even showed up there unannounced. Maybe she just needs some time? Marriage is complicated. We've been married for 3 years, Mike said quietly. It wasn't like this before. She used to be more relaxed, independent, and now... He trailed off. And now what? Now she wants to know where I am every minute of the day, who I'm talking to, what I'm thinking. He looked at Emily. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to burden you with our problems. It's okay. All couples have difficulties. Did you and David have any? Emily thought about it. Different ones. He was more distant than overly attentive. Now I understand why. They fell silent again. Emily studied Mike's profile in the bluish light of the TV. He was an attractive man, not a movie star, but with the kind of quiet, reliable good looks that appeal to women. No wonder Sarah was worried. Maybe you should try family therapy, she suggested. I suggested it. She said we could work it out ourselves. Mike finished his beer. Sometimes I feel like she thinks I'm going to leave her. Are you? No, he replied quickly. Of course not. I love her. It's just hard to love someone who doesn't trust you. Emily nodded. I understand. The next few days passed quietly. Emily settled into her work routine. Sarah seemed more relaxed. And Mike spent more time at home. On the weekends, the three of them went to the movies, the farmer's market, and the local art museum. But on Saturday night, an incident occurred that showed Emily just how complicated the situation at home was. They were sitting in the backyard, barbecuing and drinking wine. The mood was light, and the conversation flowed freely. Emily told a funny story about a patient who tried to bribe her with chocolate bars so she would let him smoke in his room. He pulled out a whole bag of Hershey's Kisses and said, "Nurse, let's make a deal." She laughed. Mike laughed. And what did you say? I said I'd need at least Godiva to compromise on hospital rules. Smart girl, Mike said admiringly. Always know your worth. Emily felt the pleasant warmth of his approval, but then she noticed the expression on Sarah's face. Her friend was looking at them with a tense smile, clutching her wine glass so tightly that her knuckles were white. Sarah? Emily asked. Are you okay? Sure, Sarah replied too brightly. I just think we need more wine. She stood up so abruptly that she almost knocked over her chair and walked into the house. Emily and Mike exchanged glances. Should I go after her? Emily suggested. Give her a minute, Mike said quietly. Sometimes she needs time to calm down. But Sarah didn't come back. Half an hour later, Emily went to look for her and found her in the kitchen, aggressively washing dishes that were already clean. Sarah, what's going on? Nothing. Sarah didn't turn around. Just cleaning up. The dishes are already clean. Not as clean as they could be. Emily moved closer. Is this because Mike laughed at my story? Sarah turned abruptly. No. Yes, I don't know. Her eyes were shiny with tears. I just thought... Thought what? That there was something going on between you two. Emily was shocked. Sarah, what are you saying? There's nothing going on between us. We were just talking. He was looking at you differently? No, he wasn't. He was just being friendly. You don't see it because you're nice, Sarah said, wiping her eyes. But I see how men look at you. I always have, even in school. Sarah, in school all the boys paid attention to you first, and then when you rejected them, they came to me. I was always the backup. Emily didn't know what to say. She didn't remember school being like that. That's not true, she said softly. And even if it was, that was a long time ago. We're grown women now. Grown women, but nothing has changed, Sarah said bitterly. You're still beautiful, smart, successful, and I'm still... Sarah, stop. You're married to a wonderful man. You have a good job, a beautiful home. You're happy. Happy? Sarah turned to the sink and started washing dishes again. Sometimes I'm not so sure. At that moment, Mike walked into the kitchen. Everything okay? He asked cautiously. Yes, the women replied simultaneously, too quickly. Mike looked at them doubtfully, but didn't press the issue. "I'll clean up the yard," he said, and left. Emily and Sarah stood in an awkward silence. "I'm sorry," Sarah said finally. "I shouldn't have said that." "It's okay," Emily assured her, though she felt uncomfortable. "We all say stupid things sometimes." But over the next few days, the atmosphere in the house changed. Sarah became more withdrawn, and when Emily and Mike were in the same room, she found reasons to join them or take one of them away. During dinner, she monopolized the conversation, not allowing Emily and Mike to talk to each other. Emily began to feel like a guest who had overstayed her welcome. She started spending more time at work, agreeing to extra shifts, and looking for apartments online in the evenings. On Thursday, when she came home from work, Sarah was waiting for her in the kitchen with a cup of hot tea. "I need to talk to you," she said seriously. Emily sat down, feeling uneasy. "About what?" "About what happened on Saturday, about my behavior." Sarah wrapped her hands around the cup. "I went to a therapist." "That's good," Emily said cautiously. "She said I have attachment issues, fear of loss. It started after—" Sarah fell silent. "After what?" "After Mike and I lost the baby. I didn't tell you the whole truth. I got pregnant 2 years ago. We were so happy. And then in the 4th month—" Sarah's voice faltered. Emily reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was ashamed. Ashamed that my body couldn't keep the baby. Ashamed that I fell apart after that. Mike was so supportive, and I turned into a monster." "You're not a monster. You were grieving. But I never fully recovered," Sarah continued. "And when you came, all my old fears came back. The fear that I'm not good enough, that I'm easily replaceable." Emily squeezed her hand tighter. "Sarah, listen to me. I'm not here to take anything away from you. I'm here because you're my friend, and you helped me when I needed it. And I would never, ever try to come between you and Mike." Sarah nodded, wiping away her tears. "I know. Deep down, I know. But sometimes painful thoughts are louder than common sense." "What did the therapist say? What should you do next?" "Keep seeing her. Try medication. And—" Sarah fell silent. "And what?" "And talk to Mike honestly. About the baby. About my fears. About how my behavior is affecting our marriage. It will be difficult, but it's the right thing to do," Emily said gently. "Yes." Sarah looked at her gratefully. "Thank you for listening. And thank you for not packing your things and leaving after I broke down. We're friends," Emily said simply. "Friends don't abandon each other." But that night, lying in bed, Emily couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Sarah's revelations explained a lot, but something in her eyes when she talked about losing a child and her fear of replacement scared Emily. She began to realize that her presence in the house was not a blessing for healing an old friendship, but rather a catalyst for something darker and more complicated. The next 2 weeks brought a deceptive calm. Sarah did go to therapy and seemed more balanced. She even apologized to Mike for her suspicious behavior and explained her reasons. Mike, in turn, began spending more time at home, trying to support his wife. Emily, meanwhile, was actively looking for her own place. She looked through the classifieds every evening, saved money from her first paychecks, and even looked at a few apartments. She particularly liked one, a small one-bedroom apartment in Old Town, 15 minutes drive from the hospital. "I think I'm going to apply for that apartment on Adams Street," she told Sarah on Friday morning over breakfast. "The rent is reasonable, and the landlady seemed nice." Sarah looked up abruptly from her oatmeal. "Already? But you've only been here a month." "Almost a month and a half," Emily corrected gently. "And I feel like it's time. You and Mike have been incredibly generous, but you need your own space." "We don't want you to leave," Sarah said quickly. "We really don't. I love having you here. It's like old times." "Sarah, we can't recreate old times. We're adults with our own lives." "But we can be close, like sisters." There was a pleading note in Sarah's voice. Please. I need someone I can trust, especially now that I'm working through all these issues with my therapist." Emily felt a pang of guilt. "I'm not going to disappear. I'll be 20 minutes away. We'll see each other all the time." "It's not the same," Sarah said quietly. At that moment, Mike came down to the kitchen, already dressed for work. What's going on? He asked, pouring coffee into a travel mug. Emily wants to move out, Sarah said accusingly. Mike looked at Emily in surprise. Are we doing something wrong? No, of course not, Emily hastened to assure him. You've been perfect hosts. I just think it's time to move out on my own. If it's money, it's not about money, it's just about independence. Mike nodded understandingly. I respect that, but know that you can always come back if things don't work out. Thanks, Emily said gratefully. Sarah finished her breakfast in silence, radiating discontent. After Mike left for work, the atmosphere became even more tense. Do you think I'm a bad friend? Sarah asked suddenly. What? No, of course not. Why would you think that? Because you can't wait to get rid of me. Emily sighed. Sarah, this isn't about you. It's about me. I need to rebuild my life, my independence. After my divorce, I feel lost, and the only way I can find myself is by being alone. What if I don't want you to be alone? What if I want to take care of you? That's sweet, but no, it's not sweet, Sarah exploded. You don't understand. When we lost the baby, I thought I was going crazy. For months, I couldn't talk to anyone but Mike. And he tried to help, but men don't understand. They think you can just move on. Emily listened silently, feeling her friend finally reveal the true depth of her pain. And then you came, Sarah continued. And for the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel so alone. For the first time, I had someone who really understood me. Sarah, no, let me finish. You're the only one who's known me since I was a kid, who remembers what I was like before all this adult crap. With you, I feel like myself. Emily felt the weight of responsibility Sarah was placing on her. But that's not healthy. You can't make me responsible for your happiness. Why not? Isn't that what friendship is? No, Sarah. Friendship means support, but not codependency. Sarah's face turned to stone. Codependent? Seriously, are you using psychology terms on me? I'm not using them on you. I'm trying to explain. Explain that I'm mentally ill? That I demand too much from you? You're not ill, but you're hurting. And instead of working through that pain, you're trying to use me as a band-aid. Sarah stood up from the table so abruptly that the chair fell over. You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I really should stop relying on people who are just going to abandon me anyway. Sarah, I'm not abandoning you. But Sarah was already leaving the kitchen. A minute later, Emily heard the front door slam. Emily waited all day for Sarah to come back, or at least text her, but the phone remained silent. She tried to focus on her work, but her thoughts kept returning to the morning's argument. Maybe she had been too harsh? Maybe Sarah really needed more support than Emily realized? Mike came home earlier than usual and immediately noticed his wife was gone. Where's Sarah? He asked. We had a fight this morning. She left and hasn't come back yet. What did you fight about? Emily told him about her plans to move out and Sarah's reaction. Mike listened, frowning. I was afraid something like this would happen, he said finally. After we lost the baby, she became very clingy. First with me, now with you. She said she was seeing a therapist. She did, twice. Then she said the therapist didn't understand her and she quit. Mike ran his hand through his hair. I tried to get her to try someone else, but she refuses. What about medication? She refuses that too. She says she doesn't want to be a zombie. He looked at Emily. I don't want you to feel trapped. If you need to move out, you should move out. But what about Sarah? Sarah is a grown woman. She needs to learn to deal with her own problems, not dump them on other people. They sat in the living room waiting for Sarah to return. At 9 o'clock, she finally came home. Her face was red and swollen from crying. Hi, she said quietly. Hi, Emily and Mike replied at the same time. Sarah sat down in the chair across from them. I went to the baby's grave. Mike tensed. Sarah, I haven't been there in months, but today I needed to talk to him, to explain what's going on. What did you tell him? Emily asked gently. That Mom is going crazy, that she's so afraid of losing the people she loves that she ends up pushing them away. Sarah looked at Emily. You were right this morning. I'm trying to make you responsible for my happiness. It's not fair. Sarah, no, let me say it. I know I'm acting crazy. I know my fears are irrational. but knowing that doesn't make them any less real. She wiped her eyes. I'll take the medication, and I'll find another therapist. Mike walked over and hugged her. We'll get through this together. What about you? Sarah looked at Emily. Do you still want to move out? Emily hesitated. Part of her wanted to stay and help her friend through this difficult period, but the wiser part of her understood that her presence could only complicate things. I think it'll be better if I find my own place, she said cautiously. But that doesn't mean I'm disappearing from your life. Sarah nodded, though she was clearly in pain. When? Next week, if the landlord approves my application. So soon? Sarah, the longer I put it off, the harder it will be for all of us. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in the house was strangely intense. Sarah did make an appointment with a new therapist and started taking antidepressants, but they hadn't kicked in yet. She wavered between trying to be normal and bouts of clingy behavior. On Tuesday, Emily got approval for the apartment. She was supposed to move in on Saturday. It all happened so fast, Sarah said at dinner. It seems like just yesterday you arrived. Time flies, Emily agreed. We'll throw you a going-away party, Mike announced. On Friday, we'll invite your colleagues from the hospital. That's not necessary. It is, Sarah insisted, forcing a cheerful smile. We should do something special. On Thursday evening, as Emily was packing her things, Sarah came into her room. Can we talk? Sure. Sarah sat down on the bed, watching Emily fold her clothes into boxes. I want you to know that no matter what happens, I'm grateful to you, she said quietly. For what? For showing me how sick I am. If you hadn't come, I would have continued living in denial, slowly destroying my marriage. Emily stopped and looked at her friend. You're not sick, Sarah. You're traumatized. Those are different things. Maybe, but the result is the same. Sarah paused. What about you? Are you glad you came? Emily thought about it. Yes, it was exactly what I needed. Time to think, the support of a friend, a chance to start over. And are you really starting over? I'm trying. Sarah nodded. What about us? Are we still friends? Of course, if you want to be. I do, but I also want you to be honest with me. If I start acting weird again, tell me. Don't let me ruin our friendship with my problems. I promise, Emily said, though something inside her felt uneasy. On Friday evening, they did indeed have a small party. Several of Emily's colleagues from the hospital came, the Thompsons' neighbors, and 2 of Mike's friends from work. The atmosphere was warm and friendly. Sarah was the perfect hostess, welcoming, attentive, witty. Emily almost believed that everything was really working out. But late in the evening, when the guests had left and they were cleaning up, Emily noticed Sarah watching her and Mike as they washed dishes together in the kitchen. Her friend's gaze was intense, almost predatory. Is everything okay? Emily asked. Of course, Sarah replied quickly. I'm just tired. But Emily didn't believe her. There was something dark in Sarah's eyes that made her feel a chill of fear. That night she hardly slept, packing her last things and getting ready to move. Only now did she realize that all this time she had felt not like a guest in her friend's home, but more like a prisoner in a golden cage. Saturday began deceptively calm. Emily woke up early to finish her last preparations for the move. Mike offered to help transport her things in his pickup truck, which made the task much easier. Are you sure you don't want to stay for breakfast? Sarah asked, standing in the doorway and watching Emily pack the last few things into a box. I'd rather get an early start, Emily replied. I want to be unpacked by evening. Sure, Sarah said, but her voice betrayed her disappointment. Mike loaded the boxes into the pickup truck, and they drove to Emily's new apartment. The drive took 20 minutes, and Sarah sat silently the whole time, staring out the window with a stony expression. The apartment was small but cozy. Large windows overlooked a quiet street, and old wooden floors gave the place character. Great place, Mike said, setting the last box down in the living room. You're going to love it here. Thanks, Emily replied. For everything. You and Sarah saved my life. We're family, Mike said simply, and family helps each other. Sarah stood by the window, not participating in the conversation. Emily walked over to her. Are you okay? Yes, Sarah replied quietly. It's just strange to see you somewhere else. But I'm only 20 minutes away. We'll see each other all the time. Will we? There was bitterness in Sarah's voice. You're starting a new life. You'll meet new people. You'll forget about us. Sarah, what are you saying? How could I forget my best friends? It's easy. People do it all the time. Mike approached them. Maybe we should let Emily unpack. She's tired. Good idea, Emily agreed, though she felt that something remained unsaid. Sarah hugged her goodbye, too tightly and too long. Call me tonight, she whispered. Promise. I promise. After they left, Emily spent the day unpacking and settling into her apartment. The work distracted her from the strange feeling of unease that had been with her since morning. Something about Sarah's behavior had been off, but she couldn't put her finger on it. That evening, she called as promised. How's it going? Sarah asked. Her voice sounded tense. Fine, I've unpacked almost everything. Tomorrow, I'll go grocery shopping and then I'll be all set for my new life. That's great, Sarah said without enthusiasm. Any plans for tonight? No. I think I'll go to bed early. What about you? Mike went to a bar with his friends. I'm home alone. There was such loneliness in Sarah's voice that Emily felt a pang of guilt. Do you want to come over? We can order pizza and watch a movie. Really? Sure. It would be great to spend my first night in my new apartment with my best friend. I'll be there in half an hour. Sarah arrived with a bottle of wine and a box of chocolates. Housewarming gifts, she explained with her first genuine smile of the day. They ordered Chinese food, opened the wine, and settled on the couch in front of the TV. The first hour went well. They laughed at a silly romantic comedy and discussed Emily's plans for decorating the apartment. But after the second glass of wine, Sarah's mood changed. Can I ask you a question? She said, turning off the TV. Sure. Have you ever thought of Mike as more than your friend's husband? Emily felt her stomach tighten. What do you mean? You know what I mean. Sarah, we've already talked about this. There's nothing between Mike and me, and there never will be. But you find him attractive. Emily paused, choosing her words carefully. Mike is a good man. And yes, he's attractive. But that doesn't mean... It means you do, Sarah interrupted. Sarah, where are you going with this? I've seen the way you look at him, the way he looks at you. Sarah's voice grew more tense. Do you think I'm blind? We're not looking at each other. We're just talking like normal people. Normal people don't flirt with their friends' husbands. I'm not flirting with Mike. Emily stood up from the couch. Sarah, you're paranoid. You need to talk to a doctor. Don't you dare tell me what I need! Sarah exploded, jumping up as well. Don't you dare use my problems to make me doubt what I see! You can't see anything but your own fears! And you can't see anything but your own desires! Sarah shouted. You've always been like this, always taking what you wanted without thinking about anyone else. What are you talking about? About how you ruined my marriage, about how you came into my house and seduced my husband. Sarah, this is crazy. I didn't do anything. You're lying. I saw the way he looked at you, how he changed after you arrived. He became distant, distracted. And this morning? What about this morning? This morning he told me that maybe we shouldn't take a break. Think about our relationship. Emily felt the world stop. Sarah, 3 weeks ago, I had a loving husband. And now, he wants a break. And the only thing that's changed in that time is you. It's not because of me. You and Mike have been having problems for 2 years. We were fine before you came. You weren't fine. You said yourself that your marriage was in crisis. Sarah was silent for a moment. Then her face contorted with rage. So you planned this, she said slowly. You knew we were having problems and decided to take advantage of it. What? No. Sarah, listen to yourself. You've always been jealous of me, in school, in college, and now you've decided to get your revenge. I've never been jealous of anyone, and I'm certainly not trying to ruin your marriage. Then why did he change? Why doesn't he love me anymore? Sarah's voice broke, and Emily saw not only anger in her eyes, but also deep pain. Maybe because you've been suffocating him? Emily said more gently. Sarah, your jealousy and suspicion are pushing him away. My jealousy? My suspicion? Sarah laughed hysterically. Maybe the problem is that he has reasons to be suspicious? What suspicions? Mike and I never what? Never been alone together? Never talked late into the night? Never looked at each other like there was no one else around? We talked like friends, like normal people. Friends don't talk the way you two talked. Emily felt her patience finally leaving her. You know what, Sarah? Maybe the problem isn't that Mike has changed. Maybe the problem is that you never change. You're still the same jealous, insecure girl you were in high school. Sarah's face turned pale. What did you say? You heard me. You've always been like this. Always afraid that someone is better than you. Always looking for reasons to be jealous where there aren't any. Shut up. No, I won't shut up. It's time you heard the truth. Your marriage isn't falling apart because of me. It's falling apart because of you. Because of your paranoia, your refusal to get help, your inability to deal with your own issues. I said shut up. And you know what's the saddest part? Mike is a really good man. He loved you and tried to help you. But you were so caught up in your fears that you pushed away the only person who truly cared about you. Sarah stood motionless, breathing heavily. Her hands were clenched into fists. You think you're better than me, she said quietly. I don't think I'm better than you. I think you're sick and you refuse to get help. You think you deserve him more than I do. Sarah, I don't want your husband. You're lying, Sarah exploded. You want him. You want my life, my home, my family. This is crazy. You ruined my life, Sarah shouted, moving closer. You came here and destroyed everything I had. I didn't destroy anything. You did. Sarah swung and hit Emily in the face. The blow was hard, unexpected. Emily staggered, lost her balance and fell, hitting her head on the edge of the coffee table. Pain exploded in her skull. She felt warm liquid running down her face. Blood. Sarah, she whispered, trying to get up. Sarah stood over her, breathing heavily. There was something wild, inhuman in her eyes. You ruined my life, she repeated more quietly. Emily tried to stand up, but her head was spinning. Sarah, I need help. I hit my head. Good, Sarah said coldly. What? Good that you hit your head. A chill ran down Emily's spine. Something in Sarah's voice, in her posture, told her that the situation was out of control. Sarah, call an ambulance. No. What do you mean, no? Sarah walked to the kitchen and returned with a large meat knife. Sarah, what are you doing? Emily's voice trembled. What I should have done a long time ago. Emily tried to crawl away, but the blow to her head made her movements slow and uncoordinated. Sarah, please. You don't want to do this. I do, Sarah said calmly. I want you to disappear forever. Think about what you're doing. Think about Mike. Mike will understand when I tell him the truth about you, about how you tried to destroy our marriage. What truth? I didn't do anything. You tried to steal my husband. Are you going to admit it or not? No, because it's not true. Rage flared in Sarah's eyes again. Even now you're lying to me. She lunged forward with the knife. Emily tried to dodge it, but she was too disoriented. The blade entered her chest, and the world exploded with pain. Sarah, she gasped, feeling the strength leave her. Now he'll be mine, Sarah whispered, delivering a second blow. Emily fell onto her back, feeling the life drain out of her along with the blood. The last thing she saw was the face of her childhood best friend, contorted with hatred and madness. Sarah stood over the body, breathing heavily, the knife still in her hand. Slowly, it began to dawn on her what she had done. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God, what have I done? Panic rose in her chest. Emily was dead. She had killed her best friend. But no, it wasn't her fault. It was Emily's fault. Emily had made her do it. Sarah looked at the blood on her hands, at the pool of blood spreading across the floor. She had to do something. She had to fix this. She ran to the bathroom and washed the blood off her hands and the knife. Then she returned to the living room and looked around. There was too much blood, too many clues, but she had time. Mike wouldn't be back until morning. The neighbors hadn't heard anything. The apartment was on the first floor and had a separate entrance. Sarah sat down on the sofa, avoiding looking at the body, and started to think. She needed a plan. She needed a story. An hour later, she had it all figured out. She would say that Emily hadn't answered her calls, so she came over to check on her. She found the door open and the body inside. A burglar, or a random maniac. Sarah wiped down all the surfaces she had touched, took the wine bottle and the leftover Chinese food. Then she left the door ajar and drove home. Tomorrow morning, she would discover the body and call the police. She would cry and talk about what a wonderful friend Emily had been. What a shame that such terrible things happen in their quiet town. Sarah got into her car and looked at the apartment one last time. Inside lay the body of her best friend, whom she had just killed. "I'm sorry, Em," she whispered, "but you left me no choice." And she drove away into the night, leaving behind only silence and death. On Sunday morning, Sarah woke up at 6, even though she had only slept for 3 hours. She had spent the whole night rehearsing her story, going over every detail. At 7, she called Emily, knowing that no one would answer. "Strange," she said to Mike, who was drinking coffee in the kitchen after returning home. "Emily isn't answering. She promised to call this morning and tell me how her first night in her new apartment went." "Maybe she's asleep," Mike suggested. "Moving is stressful." "Maybe, but she's always been a night owl." Sarah feigned concern. "I'm going over to her place. I'll see if everything's okay." "Do you want me to come with you?" "No, stay here. I'll call you if anything happens." Sarah arrived at Emily's apartment at 7:30. She sat in her car for a few minutes, gathering her courage. Then she got out, walked over to the door, and pushed it. As she had expected, it was slightly ajar. "Emily?" she called loudly. "Are you home?" She went inside and saw what she had left behind that night, her friend's body in a pool of blood. For a moment, she was overcome with panic. It had really happened. She had really killed Emily. Sarah forced herself to pick up the phone and dial 911. 911? What's happening? "My friend, I think she's dead," Sarah said in a trembling voice. "Please come quickly." 15 minutes later, the apartment was full of police officers, paramedics, and crime scene technicians. Sarah sat in a patrol car, wrapped in a blanket, pretending to be in shock. Detective Ray Morris arrived half an hour later. A 45-year-old man with graying hair and tired eyes. He had been working in the homicide department for 20 years and had seen it all. "Mrs. Thompson?" He approached Sarah. "I'm Detective Morris. Can you tell me what happened?" Sarah repeated her story, how she had been worried because Emily wasn't answering her calls, how she had come to check on her and found the door open. "Did you touch anything inside?" Morris asked. "No, nothing. As soon as I saw her, I called the police." "When was the last time you saw Miss Chen alive?" "Yesterday afternoon. My husband and I were helping her move." "How did she seem? Was she worried about anything? Did she mention any threats?" "No, she was happy. She was excited about a new start after her divorce." Morris nodded, writing in his notebook. "And last night? Did you talk to her?" Sarah paused, as if trying to remember. "Yes, she called around 7. She said she had almost finished unpacking." "And you didn't talk to her after that?" "No, she said she was going to bed early." The initial examination of the crime scene yielded few clues. There were no signs of forced entry, and nothing had been stolen. Emily had been stabbed twice in the chest. The weapon had not been found. "Strange," Morris said to his partner, Detective Williams. "If this was a robbery, why didn't they take anything? Her phone, her wallet, her jewelry, everything's here. Maybe something scared them off?" "Possibly. But then why did they take the time to pick up the knife?" A few hours later, Morris arrived at the Thompsons' house to take more detailed statements. Mike was in shock over the news of Emily's death. "I can't believe it," he repeated. "Who could have done this? She never hurt anyone." "Tell me about her condition after the divorce," Morris asked. "Did she have any enemies? Problems with her ex-husband?" "The divorce was painful, but not hostile," Mike replied. "Emily was more upset than angry. She had no enemies. Everyone loved her." Sarah sat next to her husband, periodically dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. "She was like a sister to me," she said quietly. "We've been friends since childhood. I can't imagine who could have done this. You said you helped her move yesterday. How did she seem? Was she scared or worried?" "No, she was in a good mood," Sarah replied. She was talking about her plans for the future, her new job. She was finally getting over her divorce. Morris asked a few more questions, but didn't learn anything new. When he left, Sarah felt the first wave of relief. Perhaps she would be able to avoid suspicion. But the next day, Morris returned with more questions. "We spoke with Miss Chen's colleagues at the hospital," he said. "Several people mentioned that she was planning to move out of your home. Is that true?" Sarah tensed up but tried to look calm. "Yes, she wanted independence. That's normal." "And how did you feel about that?" "I understood. She's a grown woman. She needed her space." Colleagues also said she mentioned some tension in the house. "What can you say about that?" Mike looked at his wife in surprise. "What tension?" Sarah felt a cold sweat break out on her forehead. There was no tension. Maybe she was referring to her own problems. The divorce was hard on her. "She specifically mentioned your behavior, Mrs. Thompson. She said you had become jealous and suspicious." "Jealous?" Mike repeated. "Of what?" Morris looked at Sarah, waiting for an answer. "Of Miss Chen's relationship with your husband." Silence hung in the air. Mike looked at Sarah in shock. "That's not true," Sarah said weakly. "I mean, there were some minor misunderstandings, but nothing serious." "What misunderstandings?" Morris pressed. "Sarah?" Mike turned to his wife. "What is he talking about?" "I've been worried sometimes," Sarah admitted. "After losing the baby, I had some trust issues, but I've been in therapy." "You've been in therapy?" Morris raised an eyebrow. "How many sessions?" 2 or 3. I was just getting started." "And medication?" "I started last week." Morris jotted it down in his notebook. Sarah realized the situation was getting worse. "Where were you on Saturday night between 8 and midnight?" the detective asked. "At home. Not with Mike. Wait." Sarah pretended to think. "Mike went to a bar with his friends. I was home alone." "Can anyone confirm that?" "No, I was alone." Morris nodded and closed his notebook. "That's all for now. If you remember anything else, call us." After he left, Mike stared at his wife for a long time. "Sarah, what's going on? What jealousy was he talking about?" "Nothing important." Sarah tried to brush it off. "Just silly thoughts." "What silly thoughts?" Sarah realized she had to give some kind of explanation. "Sometimes I felt like there was a connection between you and Emily, but I know it was just my problem." "A connection? Sarah, we were just talking." "I know, that's why I went to therapy." But Mike didn't look convinced. "What about Saturday night? You told the detective you were home alone." "I was. But you went somewhere. I remember because when I got back, your car was cold, like you'd just arrived." Sarah's heart pounded. "I went to the store." "What store is open at midnight on a Sunday?" "The 24-hour one, for groceries." But there was nothing new in the fridge. Sarah realized she was trapped by her own lies. "I changed my mind. I just went for a drive. I needed to think." Mike looked at her with growing suspicion. "Sarah, are you lying to me?" "Of course not. Why would I lie?" But she could see in his eyes that he didn't believe her. The next few days passed in mounting tension. Morris continued his investigation, questioning neighbors and studying surveillance camera footage. Sarah tried to act normal, but her paranoia grew. On Thursday, Morris came to their house again. "We found something interesting," he said. "The gas station camera 2 blocks from Miss Chen's apartment shows your car, Mrs. Thompson. The time is 10:47 p.m. on Saturday." Sarah felt the world collapse around her. "That's impossible. You said you were home alone. Now you're saying you went to the store. And now we know you were near the crime scene at the time of the murder." "I can explain." "Explain." Sarah desperately tried to come up with a story. "I went to see Emily." "Why?" "To apologize. We had a fight in the morning about her moving out. I felt guilty." "And what happened?" "Nothing. I changed my mind. I didn't knock. I turned around and drove home." "Why didn't you say so right away?" "Because I was afraid it would look suspicious." Morris studied her face. "Mrs. Thompson, I need you to come to the station for further questioning." "I want a lawyer," Sarah said quietly. "That's your right." Mike looked at his wife in horror. "Sarah, what's going on? Tell me the truth." But Sarah couldn't say anything anymore. All her carefully constructed lies were crumbling like a house of cards. At the station, after the lawyer arrived, Morris presented all the evidence. Testimony from colleagues about tension in the home, the surveillance camera footage, the lack of an alibi, and finally, the DNA analysis results. The knife found in a trash can 3 blocks from the apartment had traces of Emily's blood and Sarah's fingerprints. Your client was at the scene of the crime at the time of the murder, Morris told the lawyer. She had a motive, jealousy over the victim's relationship with her husband. She has no alibi, and now we have the murder weapon with her fingerprints on it. The lawyer asked for a recess to consult with his client. Alone with Sarah, he was blunt. The case against you is very strong. The only way to avoid the death penalty is to admit your guilt and take a plea bargain. Sarah sat silently, knowing that it was over. She thought about Mike, about the last lie she had told him, about how she had ruined not only Emily's life, but her own as well. "Okay," she whispered finally. "I'll tell the truth." And she told him the whole truth about that night, about her jealousy, about how she lost control, how she killed the only person who tried to help her. When she finished, the room was silent. "Why?" Morris asked. "Why did you do it?" Sarah looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. "Because I couldn't let her go. Because I thought she was going to take everything away from me. But now I realize she wasn't taking anything away. I destroyed everything myself." The court sentenced Sarah to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Mike filed for divorce and moved to another city, unable to live in the place where the tragedy had occurred. Emily Chen was buried at Woodland Cemetery. Colleagues from the hospital, a few school friends, and her parents attended the funeral. Mike stood in the back row, unable to get closer to the coffin of the woman whose death was the result of his family problems. In her cell, Sarah thought about that last night every day, about how, if she had just let go of her fears and trusted the treatment, Emily would still be alive. They could both have been happy, but it was too late for regrets. Some things cannot be fixed. Some decisions are irreversible, and the price of jealousy proved too high for everyone.